What is up, everybody? Welcome to the pre-party, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. My name is J-Cal, and this is the pre-party, the hour before Power. Too sweet to be sour. Do I sound like a robot? That's the question that I really, really want to know. Yeah. So, hey, I see, man, you guys are already in the chat. You guys are talking about dinner, making me hungry already. Let's see. I see Willie Bowen's in the house. Media M5 is in the house. James is in the house. James Bell. Let's see. Heebs is here. The great Kisa is here. And I'm here. So that's plenty right there. What's up, everyone? I hope you're having a great week. It is Tuesday. It is the hour before Power. We're here to talk NWA with you. That hashtag NWA fam. And yeah, man, I'm excited. Wow, it's been it's only Tuesday, but it's been a week already. So I mean, real quick, do I sound like a robot? Anybody? Cyborg J Cal. Do I sound like a robot? It's far away sounding. The mic's right here. All right, well, that's as good as it's going to get, gentlemen. That's the best I can do for right now. I do have notes. I took some notes because I want to talk about this NWA National Championship because we are going to crown a new number one contender tonight on POWERRR. We're going to have somebody emerge from a triple threat match who will be the face to challenge Cyon at Hard Times 3. Hate when you move it closer. Yes, keep it that way. All right. Heebs says I sound fabulous. Thank you, Heebs. Anyways, so yeah, when we look back at the national title, now there's been several national champions. In fact, if you go from the entire history of the title, when you talk about the national championship, I mean, there's been 93 different champions going all the way back to the very first champion in Austin Idol in 1980, which probably predates most of you guys watching right now, your existence. I know I was just a little baby in 1980 when Austin Idol was the first national champion. And there's some great legendary wrestlers to hold that title, like Paul, Mr. Wonderful Orndorff, the Masked Superstar, the Super Destroyer, Buzz Sawyer, Tommy Rich, Outlaw Ron Bass, Jack Briscoe. There's a lot of great wrestlers. Mr. Wrestling 2, Ted DiBiase, Brad Armstrong, The Spoiler, Ronnie Garvin, Terry Taylor, Buddy Landell, Dusty Rhodes, Tully Blanchard, Wahoo McDaniel, and Nikita Koloff, just to name a dozen or so. And that was in that Jim Crockett era of the NWA in those early 80s. And then in the more modern times, going back to like 1997, when the title was reinvigorated with the NWA after Turner Sports left the NWA. You had Big Slam and Salvatore Sincere, Doug Gilbert, Stevie Richards, Kevin Northcutt, Hot Stuff Hernandez, Ricky Murdoch, The Spider, Chance Prophet, friend of the show, Pepper Parks, Crusher Hansen, Phil Shatter, Tokyo Monster Cahagas, Damian Wayne, Wardell Walker, Lou Marconi, Phil Moonahan, and of course Jax Dane. Can't forget about Eric Andrews. I know a lot of you guys love Greg Anthony, Jake Logan, of course, Cahagas holding that title for a second time. So that was the history of the national championship, by and by, up until the Lightning One era. Because remember, when Lightning One purchased the NWA, the first thing they did was sealed all the ancillary championships. The only person who was able to continue to defend their title after the October 2nd date was none other than Tim Storm defending the 10 pounds of gold. Everyone else was either forced to vacate the title or that championship was just frozen. An example of Jazz was actually able to continue to defend her women's championship, but not after it took a few months before she was able to actually get out there and start defending that title, maybe even a year actually. But the national title was sealed, the North American title sealed, World Junior Heavyweight, the World Tag Team titles, all those championship belts were sealed, meaning that those champions were then forced to forfeit, relinquish the titles. So when they crowned a new NWA National Champion, this goes back to the anniversary show, the 70th anniversary show, if you will, the same night where Cody Rhodes and Nick Aldis battled in a 2 out of 3 falls for the 10 pounds of gold. Willie Mack emerged victorious in a card filled with some pretty solid contenders. When you look at who Willie Mack had to face in that qualification to become the champion, I mean, he eventually defeated Sam Shaw. That was the main event, or not the main event, but the finals of the qualifying matches for the national title. But, Sam Shaw, to qualify, had to defeat Colt Cabana, Sammy Guevara, and Scorpio Sky. Kind of funny how all three of those guys are in AEW now. And, I mean, those were some tough names at the time, still tough today. And then when you look at who Willie Mack had to defeat, he had to face Jay Bradley, Pollo, and Ricky Starks. Now, Ricky Starks, I mean, he was kind of the unknown at the time, but he really had blossomed into quite a superstar while working with the NWA, now in AEW. Jay Bradley, we know from the Fixers and the Boomstick, right? And, of course, Mike Parro, who, despite his most recent efforts in the NWA, was actually a very skilled big man. And he was in the ring with Willie Mack was in the ring with some of those guys. So Willie Mack had to outlast, Starks, Bradley, and Parro before defeating Sam Shaw. Now, when we talk about national champions, there probably hasn't been as good a one as the first one in Willie Mack. Willie Mack had defended that title 6 times in 6 months. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but that's actually a lot more. That's a lot more than some of his modern contemporaries. He was also able to take the title to places like House of Hardcore, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and Ring of Honor. He faced some pretty stiff competition, too. I mean, he faced off against Shane Strickland, Matt Cross, and Rhett Titus, not to mention Josh Alexander, your current Impact heavyweight champion. Now, he held that title for roughly 6 months before losing the belt to Colt Boom Boom Cabana at the first Crockett Cup 2019. Now, Cabana, as champion, had 4 title defenses. Now, he would have a total of 2 runs with the belt, but his first run with it, he had 4 title defenses. His notable opponents were James Storm, Mark Briscoe, and Chris Masters, Chris Adonis. Excuse me. Take a drink real quick. He took the title to Ring of Honor and had the title for roughly 2 months. So, for 2 months, he did get a lot of mileage out of being champion. Then James Storm, who defeated Cabana at a Ring of Honor house show, like a dark match. James Storm had 3 title defenses. His most notable opponent was Colt Boom Boom Cabana. He had defended the title in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, held the belt roughly roughly 4 months. A lot of that's because at that point, Power just started filming, so he didn't get a lot of time to run with that belt. Cabana would win the title one more time from Storm. He'd only get one title defense, and that was in a triple threat match at Hard Times, the original pay-per-view, where he would lose to Aron Steven in a triple threat match with him and Ricky Starks, and that title reign would last 2 months. So, as we can see, the first 4 champions, really was just about a year in length of that championship being created to how many title matches they had and everything like that. Then we'd have Stevens, and this is right around the pandemic, so a lot of the records kind of just stalled here. You'll see Stevens had that title for 10 months, but only defended the title 3 times. And the most notable opponents were Trevor Murdoch and Scott Steiner, and he most famously defended the title against Trevor Murdoch on a primetime live episode of the United Wrestling Network, where he would lose the title to Murdoch. Murdoch had that title also during the middle of the pandemic. Roughly had 3 title defenses over the course of 7 months. Most notable opponent was Chris Adonis, the man he had lose the belt to, and then was able to take that title to SWE Fury, which was a short-lived wrestling promotion based out of Texas that did have television. Adonis had 2 back-to-back reigns, which is kind of unfamiliar. His first reign as champion, he literally defended the title 0 times. His second reign as champion, he had 5 defenses, which is a lot more pleasing as a wrestling fan, but that first reign just left such a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. It was kind of hard to get excited about Adonis having a second run with the title. He would win that title in a tournament, eliminating Tom Latimer to get the opportunity. And then once winning the championship, he did face James Storm. He did face, and he did take the title to Ohio Valley. His reign lasted a total of 8 months between the 2 reigns, the 7 and 8 reign. But the one that really mattered was the second reign, where he held the title for 6 months. Then Anthony Mayweather would emerge as champion. He would have 3 title defenses, one against Jack Stane, actually both of them against Jack Stane, and I don't remember who the other title defense was against. He held the title for 1 month exactly. Then Jack Stane would be the 10th man to hold the title, or the 10th champion, I should say, because Cabana held it twice, Adonis held it twice. With Jack Stane having 4 title defenses, most notably against Chris Adonis. He never took the belt outside of the NWA, and he held the belt for 5 months. That brings us to Cyon, who won the title at the 74th anniversary show. He's had a total of 3 title defenses, 2 of which have been outside of the NWA, with more title matches scheduled. His most notable opponent has been Joe Alonzo, having defended the title against him outside of the NWA, having non-title matches with him in the NWA. And, he took the title to the Wrestling Showcase. There's another wrestling promotion I don't know the name of. And he's been out there for about 3 months now. So as a champion, Willie Mack can't be touched. And it'll be interesting to see what is next for Cyon, because we know he's going to be defending that national championship a lot outside of the NWA. Like I said, he's already got 2 title defenses in the books outside of the NWA back in September. And he's already looking to make some more dates in October as your NWA National Champion. So good stuff. I can't wait to see what's going to happen next for that national championship. Hisa points out that Idol was the first national television champion. You know what, Hisa, you're right, but you're correct. 100% correct. I know that, how the NWA likes to do things. They kind of blend the history, and it's not always accurate. So yeah, you are right, Hisa. Briscoe was the first champion. I'll bow my head on that one. Heap says the arm drag guy totally botched the layout of this tournament. I swear it seemed like it would be a 4-way at the pay-per-view, or was that just me? I don't really know, man. The whole thing seemed kind of all over the place. And it's just it's one of those things where there's 100 different ways to book these things, and sometimes I feel like they don't go with the easiest path of resistance. Sometimes I don't know why it has to be as drawn out as it is sometimes. I guess the 3-way, it just ends it all quicker than a 4-way would have, but I don't know. It just seems weird. I do want to say what's up to Kisa and Carlton. What's up, guys? Thanks for checking out the show today. Let's see. More of your comments. Carlton says, I would have had Adonis win it again because it'll be his third time. Adonis could have been a good run as a face champ. Battling Cyon, Draper, Stevens, Pope, Rodney Mack, and Aron Stevens. I mean, sure, right now, Aron Stevens isn't even what they're considering an active performer, an active wrestler. I do believe he is making a face turn, Adonis is. I mean, yeah, I kind of like Dak Draper. We'll talk more about that as we get on the show, but there's certainly different options that could have gone. Carlton says Willie Mack was good, but he disappointed me by leaving the NWA. Yeah, there was some chicanery going on with that. There was some shady stuff happening. I know that Willie Mack was technically under contract to the parent company of Lucha Underground, which was owned by AAA or something like that. I probably don't have the details right, but he was technically under like some sort of AAA contract, which prevented him from being under contract to the NWA exclusively. Now we see now that a lot of talents are working multiple promotions, but at the time it seemed like no, he's either NWA or he's not NWA, and I think at the time they were just going to let that contract run out and then an effort to re-sign him, only for Impact to come in and swoop him up right from underneath the NWA, and that caused a lot of bitterness for the NWA and Impact Wrestling. And that's one of the big reasons why they didn't want to work together, or at least the NWA didn't want to work with Impact for a long time. You would hear Billy say, "Yeah, we're not working with them," and it wasn't because Dixie Carter, because she was already out of the picture. It was everything what happened with Willie Mack and a few other things, but the major thing was Willie Mack. Willie says Willie Mack, when he was national champion, he wrestled Nick Aldis for the World's Heavyweight Championship. I don't recall that, Willie. I don't think that happened. I know that Willie challenged Cody Rhodes when Cody was champion, but that was before Willie was the TV champion. I mean, the national champion. Sean Mega says Cyon is winning no matter what. And I mean, like, I don't know what's going to be next for the national championship. I really wouldn't have taken the belt off of Jack State if it were up to me, but it's not up to me. Willie says Cyon is going down just like that Lord Butt Tyrus. He won't get the national heavyweight championship. Well, I mean, Cyon already is the national heavyweight champion. Maybe you mean he isn't going to hang on to it for very much longer. And then Carlton says Willie Mack is very good. I could see him as the next JYD. You know, it's funny you say that because, I mean, maybe appearance-wise, he kind of does have a similar look to like a JYD, but when in terms of in-ring competition, a lot of what he does in the ring reminds me of Samoa Joe. And I know that sounds like ludicrous, but the way that Samoa Joe blended a heavyweight style of wrestling, almost like with cruiserweight style of high-flying maneuvers, it wouldn't be rare to see Joe diving outside of the ring or diving off the top rope. And the same thing when you watch Willie Mack wrestle, he is all over the ring. He flies like with the grace of a luchador. In fact, that's why he's so adapted to wrestling like with AAA or in the Crash in Mexico, because he's able to really work that lucha libre style. And for me, that's pretty awesome. Willie Mack wrestled NWA World Heavyweight Champion Nick Aldis on Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. You know, I'm gonna be honest, Willie. I don't think that happened. But let me. I've got my screen here. Let me search real quick. Let me just take a look and see if he ever faced Nick Aldis. I don't think they ever wrestled. Yeah, I mean, according to Cage Match, that never happened. But that's just one website. That's one reference. It's not always 100% accurate, but I don't recall that match happening. Carlton says a match between Cyon versus Adonis is money, making it feel like Magnum TA versus Tully or Sawyer versus Tommy Rich. Well, guys, before we could put this match for Adonis, like, remember, this is the #1 contenders match. There's still 2 other talents in that match. Of course, you've got Pollo the Mars man, and I'm talking about Thrillbilly Silas, he's not a slouch either. That's a big dude. You're not going to just walk over Thrillbilly Silas. And then in the same time, you've got Dak Draper, who is a big dude in his own right. I mean, all three of these guys are genuine official heavyweight wrestlers, and not one of them is a slouch. So it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. Um, I had the overlays, but I did not put them up on the screen. So let me do that now. Uh, and of course, as we look at the national championship, they're already booked for this week. Cyon is supposed to be defending that title, I believe, this weekend. So I mean, there's a lot of going on, and we'll just go ahead and parlay that into more power talk because we're supposed to be getting another. We're supposed to have this match tonight again for that number one contendership for the national championship. Now, like I said, all three of these guys are very, very qualified to be stepping in the ring with Cyon. I can't tell you that one of these men will walk away from New Orleans as your new national champion, but I mean, look at the talent levels. Chris Adonis is a three-time national heavyweight champion. Remember when I was listing the notable defenses of some of the previous champions, Adonis's name came up quite a bit. He challenged Colt Cabana for that title back in Colt's first run as national champion. He challenged Trevor Murdoch in Murdoch's only run as national champion. And then, of course, if he wins this weekend, if he wins tonight, excuse me, he'll be going to New Orleans to face Cyon in what could be a pretty damn good match. But I think really all three of these guys have a really good opportunity. I'm really looking forward to what this match is going to look like. Willie says Dak Draper, Jordan Clearwater are the future of NWA Power in USA. I kind of like that. I mean, yeah. I mean, look, Jordan Clearwater is leveraged right now to be your next television champion. He just has to beat AJ Kazana, and then Dak Draper. He has to win one match tonight and one match in November to become national champion. There's very truth to that. Pollo says that lady with Silas, she looks like one of them that are Playboy playmates. She doesn't make them all fancy like those models. And I mean that's going to be a fun match. Again, we've talked about this before on this podcast, on this show. We want to look for the future for the NWA, just like Willie said. We want to see some future talents. Now the future's now. I mean, it really is. I mean, you do have an abundance of talented individuals who are, I'm not going to say they're old, but they've surpassed that threshold of 35. And I'm not saying that's when it's time to hang up the boots. No, I'm not saying that at all. But, a promotion like the WWE, they stopped looking at talent after the age of 30. So there's opportunity for, people over the age of 30, of course, in the NWA. But, we talk about some of these younger guys who have just really starting to make their own way. The Dak Draper, the Jordan Clearwater. There's guys on this brand who are certainly coming into their own at the right time. But we're also seeing some wily veterans, stick around, and we're seeing some names that have been around in the business for a while, but finally getting that opportunity to be spotlighted. So there's a lot of real positive things with the NWA. The future is, it is, it really is. So when we start looking at some of the other matches for tonight, we have a women's tag team match. Oh, real quick, you know what? Let's take a quick survey. Who is going to win this match? I would like for everyone in the chat to leave a comment. Who do you think is going to walk out tonight as your number one contender for the NWA National Championship? Will it be Dak Draper? Will it be Chris Adonis? Or will it be Thrillbilly Silas? Who do you guys have your money on? Who, if you're a betting person, who are you betting on? Me personally, and Pollo, please don't be mad. I think it's Dak Draper tonight. I think Dak is going to win this championship, well, not the championship, win this contendership and go on to face Cyon at Hard Times 3. But I'd like to hear who you guys think it's going to be. Let's see. You guys are already hitting up the comments. James Bell says Silas. That Thrillbilly. Medium 5 says the Thrillbilly. So that's 2 for Thrillbilly. I would love to hear what everyone else thinks. Just leave a comment in the chat. We'll get to it in just a few minutes. Carlton says, hey, do you think with all the talent we have in the NWA, do we think we could run a territory style again? Because right now we work with TNT and Wildcat Promotions in Atlanta. So they haven't done much with Atlanta in a while. And I don't think they're going to be doing anything more with Atlanta, at least for now. Obviously, things could change, but I think their home now is the Skyline Studios in Nashville. And could they work territories? I mean, yes, to your point, they kind of already are. They're working in, I believe it's Kentucky for Joe Kazana in his area. They're working in parts of Tennessee with TNT, and then, of course, now Louisiana with Wildcat. Can they continue to do that? Absolutely. Should they continue to do that? Absolutely. But it's not like a traditional territory in the sense that, you're giving control of your company to somebody else. When they're in New Orleans next month, it's not going to be a Wildcat show. It's still going to be very much an NWA show. It will feature some Wildcat matches for sure, but make no mistake, it's an NWA show. It's still being booked by the front office of the NWA, most importantly, Billy Corgan. So, yes, working with these other promotions, I think, is a brilliant idea. It helps because they're going to draw in a local fan base. Plus, it helps give offset some of their costs. They're not having to find new venues. They're not having to find rings. By working with these other promotions, these things can be provided for them. But I just don't know who I think is going to be. I just don't know if the traditional sense of working the territory makes sense in 2022. With that being said, we've got, like I said, 2 for Silas, 1 for Dax and me, and then Carlton says Adonis. Willie backs me with Dak, and so I think we are pretty much split. We've got 2 for Dak, 2 for Silas, and 1 for Adonis. So we'll see how it all plays out tonight. Medium 5 says plus due to I aggravate Pollo so much. Pollo said, yes, that's right. Pollo's going to come at. See, Pollo's going to come after you with that shoe because you've been talking too much mess. All right. So, what was that? That wasn't supposed to happen. Let's see. All right. So as we get back to it now, the next match scheduled for tonight is going to be. I don't think this has any implications for number 1 contendership or anything like that, but we'll have a women's tag team match, which is good. I feel like one of the worst burdens that the NWA has is when they come up with a lot of these titles, they're putting out championship belts before they build up their divisions. I think they expect the division to just come along once the title is built. When they announced the national championship, when Willie Mack would eventually win it, they didn't even have a television program yet. The only roster of the NWA was really Tim Storm, Nick Aldis, and at that point, Willie Mack. It took a while for the national championship to really come into its own with having more than 2 or 3 challengers for that belt. I think we have a good 5 or 6, maybe even more men who are suitable to challenge for that championship. But when it comes to the women's tag team division, I think it suffers. I think the women's tag team division suffers because outside of the Hex, there isn't really a whole lot going on in terms of women's tag team. Now, we know that Ella Envy and Kenzie Page are women champions, the women's tag team champions. They have been, they've had the successful defense at the 74th anniversary show against the Hex. But now maybe we're being introduced to some new blood here with Natalia Markova and Terrell, who have kind of had this weird relationship in and of itself. These two have been, during the Natalia Markova matches, they seem to squabble on the outside. So it's kind of hard to decide if this is a good tag team pairing or not. But when you look at Terrell and what she was accomplished outside of the NWA, and how dominant Natalia Markova has been within the NWA. I'm hoping that they actually take this league serious and put on some good wrestling tonight. We'll see how it all plays out again. But I mean, when you look at those two ladies, Natalia Markova, she is, we're all out of focus here. She is such an assassin in that ring. And of course, when you look at the likes of Terrell, what she was able to do outside of the NWA, I think she's been quite phenomenal. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see on that one. Then also tonight we have, oh brother, how do I get started on this? Why? My first question is why? Why is this the direction they want to go? No, like seriously, why? Why? I'll be okay here in just a minute. I will, I promise. I'm just having a tech issue real quick. Let me work on this real quick. All right, I'm not trying to be secretive and quiet, but I'm not a fan of this. Oh, there it is. That's working. I'm not a fan of the question mark. I'm not a fan of Aron Stevens' chicanery. I like Aron Stevens. I want to see Stevens, but do I really need to see this? The question mark is not entertaining to me. The question Mac wasn't entertaining to me. I'm not going to call him the question mark part 2. He's not. Has nothing to do with Josephus. I hate this. I hate it. So when I look at this poster and I see this, I'm just disappointed. Very, very disappointed. I don't know what they're trying to accomplish with this, and I can't say enough bad things about it. But let me see some of your comments. Hopefully, that cheer me up. Carlton says, yeah, that's why I said territory style because of all the belts. In the past, the belts were in different promotions. Yes and no. The belts the belts were always intended to travel. I mean, you had your Texas heavyweight champion, and that was kind of regulated to Texas, obviously, but that national championship that would tour to, and I'm speaking more of the modern day NWA, the 90s and beyond. When they 1997 when the national championship, although it spent a lot of time with Dennis Corluzzo, it also went down to Florida with Joe Price, and then into Texas with oh gosh, what was his name? Anyway, NWA Ken Taylor. There it is, Ken Taylor. So the belt did travel from time to time, although I get what you're saying. There is a lot of title belts. It'd be neat if they could do some sort of where they would put those belts in more of a regional kind of alignment. Again, I think the biggest problem is they just doing the tapings the way that they do it and not producing enough original content. I think makes it hard to make those title belts as more meaningful. Our pal Pro Wrestling Zone's in the house. What's up, Rick Del Santo? Happy birthday, Rick Del Santo. Everyone say happy birthday to Rick. Turning the old 29. Happy birthday, Rick. Media M5 says he doesn't see the magic between Markova and Taryn. Sometimes these things have to, you have to give them time to work. I'll be honest, when we were first introduced to Kratos and Stevens, I hated that tag team. By the end of it, I really, really enjoyed it. And sometimes it just takes the seasoning for it to work. Paladin's in the house. What's up, Paladin? Yeah, James, my battery was dying. That's why I had some tech issue there. I'll just watch them too for the camera shots from the day. All right. Media Empire says he'll just watch that ladies match for the we'll get to that in a minute. Let's see. The voice of reason, Rick Del Santo, if he doesn't like it, he's right about things. He doesn't like the question mark 2 thinking. I don't either. Paladin, yes, that's exactly my point. I think the question mark was a very fun gimmick. It was very entertaining. It was a nice way of giving Josephus an opportunity to wrestle outside of his Josephus character. Remember, Josephus was when the NWA first kicked off. Josephus was looking for a world title shot. He was engaged in a feud with Tim Storm. He was trying to take Tim Storm's #1 contender spot away from him. Remember that. And he was so just had this alternative gimmick where he was much like a cult leader and all this weird stuff. He just wanted to have a different gimmick when he was in Power, and that's when they came up with the question mark. Now I don't know who specifically came up with that. I don't know if it was Billy's idea or Josephus's idea or a combination of both, but it worked very well in Atlanta. It got over hot with the crowd, and of course those 2 long, very long days of tapings. It just went wild in that Georgia Public Broadcasting Studio. They never were able to recreate that same magic from the first 2 nights, but it still continued to be over in Atlanta. And we never saw it translate outside of the Georgia Public Broadcasting Studios because after COVID, the NWA and Josephus had a departure, falling out. I don't know exactly to what extent, but we know when the NWA had Aron Steven win the tag titles, it wasn't the question mark team with Stevens, it was Kratos. So I don't know if we would have ever seen Josephus or the question mark back in the NWA ever again, because apparently they had some sort of falling out. And then of course, by the time the NWA was getting ready to start wrestling operations back up again, Josephus had already passed away. So, with all that being said, with all that drama, with all that, I don't know. It feels very weird to bring back a character with that much baggage attached to it. I just want Mack to be Red Dog. I just want Mack to be Mack. I don't want him to be the question Mack. Let's see more comments. I like that. Rick says, thanks, Jake Howell and friends. I feel like Garfield all of a sudden. It's Garfield and friends over here. Yeah, a lot of you guys are saying that you should just let Rodney Mack be Rodney Mack. And I'm with you, man. I hate that Rodney Mack's such an accomplished athlete, such a great wrestler. He's been wrestling for 10 or 30 years. Why are we putting him in these ridiculous gimmicks? Just let him go out there and beat people up. That's what I want to see. Give me the feud. Give me Jack Sane and give me Red Dog. Give me that. Carlton says, I remember Josephus before the NWA got on YouTube his work as spiritual cult leader with the ball woman straight. Yeah, it was very, and that's what it was supposed to be. It's supposed to be off the wall. It's supposed to be a little zany. It's supposed to be a little weird. You know, and it was fun. And now it just seems like when I see this, it doesn't make me happy. It makes me sad. It makes me very sad. And I feel like this is like Paladin said, this is a desecration of a man's legacy, bringing up this gimmick. And then, of course, the next match, the main event for this evening, is going to be Taya Valkyrie. And this is another kind of confusing issue, right? Taya won this #1 contendership already, right? I mean, if we go back, I know it's been a while, but let's go back to Taya's first match after the pay-per-view. And if I can just pull it up here real quick as I'm stalling. You know, she defeated Chelsea Green, Genocide, and Kilynn King to be named #1 contender. I mean, we all remember that, right? And that aired. That literally was the second episode after Power. We all remember that, right? Don't we? I'm not the only one that remembers that, right? So when you're telling me that she's already beat 3 other women, Genocide, Chelsea Green, and the aforementioned Kilynn King, why does she have to defend her number one contendership against Kilynn King, who she already beat for the number one contendership. It doesn't make sense. This is when booking gets kind of bad. This is when it's most unfortunate. I feel like when you're doing a good job of telling the story, and then stuff gets convoluted, it gets in the way. James says maybe they're disguising Rodney Mack so another promotion won't take him away. I mean, that's a good point. King is AEW, just saying, guys. She is ours. Yeah, I know that she has worked in AEW, but I don't think she's under some sort of extensive exclusive contract. Carlton, no, this isn't a replay. This is a fresh match for tonight. This is fresh. Medium 5 says Spiritual Josephus was best for his work on the indies as Josephus Brody. That would have been fun to see him as Josephus Brody in this version of the NWA. Now, obviously, that wasn't in the cards, but that would have been fun to see it. Just somebody like that. We don't really have somebody like that in the NWA. It would have been fun. Medium 5. Yeah, I mean, Kilynn is great, and that this isn't meant to be disrespectful to her as a performer, as a wrestler, as a talent. But I just feel like Kilynn King in this kind of a match, the number one contenders match, which she's already lost in a 4-way match for the number one contendership, it doesn't make sense. Like, I don't have a problem to start building her up right now. Have her face, Roxy from the from Pretty Empowered, or if she goes and faces Natty and gets a victory there, or starts facing some of the other women on the roster, another match with Chelsea Green, another match with Terrell, or something along those lines. But if you're going to build her up by having her challenge for a match, a number one contendership, it just doesn't make sense. Yeah. Willie Bowen likening the Razor Ramon deal back in the day, the fake Razor and the fake Diesel to Josephus, and I feel like it is very similar to that. James Mills says it's going to be a 3-way for the Women's Championship in New Orleans, and that's not horrible, right? That's not horrible, but that puts us in a weird position because now you're doing both world titles and triple threat matches. We know that Tyrus and Matt Cardona will be challenging Trevor Murdoch for the 10 pounds of gold. Now we're going to do the same thing for the Burke. We're going to have Camille have to defend against Kilynn King and Taya Valkyrie. It's just a little repetitive. I mean, I'm not booking it, but I just don't think it's a good deal. Paladin says King is signed AEW talent. There are 5 tiers of contracts offered by AEW. All Elite is the 4th. King is the one of the lower contracts, probably a developmental contract. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me. That's fine. For the longest time, we had, oh, God, what was her name? Why am I drawing a blank? Shoot. There was the gal who was also on loan from the AEW who was feuding with Trish Stratus. Jesus, Jay. With Mickie James. I can't think of her name right now. I'm sure you guys will get me on it. Cal, the Brody stuff was great with Josephus. He was in Southern States wrestling many times. Yeah, I used to watch some of the. It was called the USWO. They did a lot of. It was like a free promotional type show. They called it NWA Cyberspace. Not to be confused with the one up north. It was different. But anyways, they had like a cyberspace champion, and I did see some of Josephus back then. Some of those matches. Yeah, James. Again, if Mickie James was available, I think we would have a better outcome. Dave Scooby says the storyline is that Bully Ray went to Billy and stated that Kilynn wasn't pinned in the 4-way. Okay, I mean, and that's a fair explanation, but why? I mean, Taya won the match fair and square. As far as I know, Bully isn't a matchmaker in the NWA. It's whatever. Josephus was the guy that didn't need a belt to be over. Guys like him, Tyrus, and the Fixers, they're over, and the crowd loves them. Yeah, the Fixers, I think, I don't think they need the titles, but I think they're enjoying this run with the U.S. Tag Team Championship. And, if they lose them, they don't need to regain them to be over with the crowd. I think it's pretty cool. Which is you got drinking right now? Where is it? I'm telling Sparkling Ice. Yeah, I do have I just finished this earlier today. My peach and nectarine. It's pretty much gone. Sparkling Ice would like to sponsor this. You can have very affordable packages for sponsorship. Willie Bowen says Chelsea Green when she's not filling it for. Oh my god! Whoops! Excuse me. Paladin says, OJ, I wanted to ask if you saw Bully Ray and Cardona debut on Impact's Round from Glory pay-per-view last week. I saw clips of Bully Ray showing up. It was funny. He was on Busted Open that Friday morning. He called in, which normally that's not his slot, and he mentioned that he was unhappy with how he matched with the last Ric Flair's last match. He was a part of the Battle Royal, the Bunkhouse Stampede, and he said he wasn't happy with how it finished. So he comes to Impact at Bound for Glory, and I don't know, man. Obviously, there's no issue with Impact talent working in the NWA and vice versa. I wish there was a little bit more separation because it feels like now that the NWA is kind of like maybe developmental for Impact. There's some that they're working so closely that the talents are going back and forth. It just kind of sees who's benefiting, who's getting the better of it. Now we also heard that the OGK have left Impact. They're moving on to whatever is next. Uncertainly intended. I just don't know. Bully Ray working in Impact, they don't really have a problem with it. I don't see Bully Ray as the next NWA World Heavyweight Champion. I don't even really consider him as the top challenger contender for that belt. I certainly could see him in the in the mid card doing some fun stuff, being the national champion or TV champion, having a run with that TV title might be a lot of fun. I don't want to see him in the world title picture. It looks like he has an opportunity to wrestle for the Impact Championship. But right now, is there anyone better than Josh Alexander? I don't know. Media Empire says Kilynn was on NWA yesterday. Kilynn mentioned she wrestles everywhere, so most likely an open contract, which is how it should be. Yeah, I don't think Kilynn is exclusive to AEW. I'll just say that. I know, but a lot of the talent that works at AEW are allowed to work other shows. Like I've seen Brian Cage work XPW shows. It's not like he can't travel and work other independent wrestling shows. I think there's just deals in place where they can't appear for the WWE or like Impact Wrestling without consent or agreement on Tony Khan and AEW. Yeah, I follow what you meant, Paladin. I do. Let's see. Media says, I miss NWA we used to do with Tharp in that duration. See, there was a time when I looked at the Tharp era as kind of a downer. They did a lot of things right, and it pains me to say this because I was not what you'd call a Bruce Tharp fan, but they did a lot of things right. I really felt the deal with New Japan was a good deal. I felt like having so many promotions in Texas and Tennessee representing the NWA was good because it allowed the champions to travel a short distance, but it felt like they were everywhere. And so they did a lot of good things that way. I think having Jack Stane unify the national North American championships before becoming world heavyweight champion, kill him. Jack Stane was a great world champion. I think Tim Storm was a great world champion. I felt like they tried to do a lot of things that did work. There's some things I don't like. I don't like how they treated a lot of the old promoters that left. But we'll see how that all played out. Bruce Tharp had 3 partners or 2 other partners. By the end of it, he was the last man standing. I don't want to spill too much tea on it, but I don't think Bruce Tharp was a very good guy. Of course, history gets to write itself, right? And those who were against Bruce Tharp have their version of the history, and those who supported Bruce have their version of the history, and we all just kind of have to stand in the middle, take everything with a grain of salt. But yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for Bruce Tharp, Billy Corgan would have owned the NWA right now. If it wasn't for Bruce Tharp, the NWA would still be a collection of independent wrestling promotions working in a territorial style system. Bruce changed all that, and then Billy changed it even further. Yes, James. The official, unofficial drink of the pre-party is the sparkling ice, and as long as sparkling ice sends the check, it'll continue to be the sparkling ice. Carlton says the country gentleman should win the U.S. titles in the future. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with that either. I like to see those. The U.S. tag titles, I think, should be on a lesser-known tag team and help build their dominance. Maybe not dominance, it's not the right word. Help build up the credibility of those challengers. Let's see what they can do as challengers for those titles. And look, there's nothing wrong with that, pal. You're totally allowed to have your favorites. I'm excited that we get to see her. She's definitely adds depth to the women's division, and without talent like her, having Camille squash weaker females is not what I call a dominant champion, but having her beat tremendous opponents who have a high skill set. When she defeats Kilynn King, it's meaningful. When she defeats Taya, it's meaningful. And when she defeats Maxine Taylor, that is meaningful. When Camille can beat those top tier challengers, it means so much. So when she beats Genocide, it also means a lot too. But yeah, I really feel like that's Kilynn is welcome in the NWA, even if she belongs to the James says our champ should be exclusive while they hold the title and give up any other titles from outside the NWA. Of course, NWA would have to pay them like a champ. Well, you just hit the nail on the head, right? The NWA at this point, and I know this is going to sound really bad, but I don't mean it to sound bad. The NWA is part-time wrestling. The NWA is not a full-time wrestling organization. They take hours upon hours of wrestling shows, 4 days a quarter, not a month, 4 days a quarter, and stretch every piece of that match material out to last to the next quarter. They run in 1 or 2 venues a month, or a quarter, I should say, and they draw okay, they draw well enough, but they're not like setting attendance records. They're not blowing out the doors, and everyone there is really just working part time. Nick Aldis can go work for a European wrestling promotion and come back in time for TV in the NWA, and it doesn't look like he's missed anything. That's honestly that would be the biggest proponent for the NWA to have some sort of international partner, be it All Japan, New Japan, Pro Wrestling Noah, World Series of Wrestling in Australia, anything really, because if a talent could be on NWA programming after working 4 days a quarter, they could go to Australia, they could go to Canada, Mexico, Japan, Germany, the UK, wherever it is, and wrestle for weeks, months even. Just as long as they're back in time for TV tapings, it won't be like we missed it at all. So, excuse me. Carlton says, James, you're right, because why they are carrying those belts, which means a lot in smaller promotions. That's why you have to be accurate with putting the belt on someone. Yeah, I agree with that too. But just the problem is, it's like when you're a part-time wrestling promotion, you can't really afford to pay talent to not take dates, right? To not take a payday. When Billy can start paying these guys like 6-figure salaries, well then they would have to kind of just do what he says. But until then, it's like, yes, NWA is going to be my priority, but that's not going to prevent me from working anyone else. And we've seen it, like Chris Adonis worked United Wrestling Network. Jordan Clearwater is the United Wrestling Network World Champion. If he wins the TV title, I don't need him to drop the UWF World title. It's just it's a different universe. It's a different promotion. They don't really interact. It's just one guy wrestles this week and one guy wrestles the next week. It's the same thing. It's just it it does what Jordan Clearwater does in the United Wrestling Network doesn't really have any lasting effect on what he's doing in the NWA and vice versa. Paladin says until the NWA gets TV, it's an indie promotion. Look, there's indie promotions that have TV. I don't even think that's the determining factor. I think it's when they take their production to the next step, when they have wrestling on a more regular basis. Again, if they're wrestling, having these shows, 4 or 5 shows a quarter, pay per view or 2 pay per views, 2 days of TV taping or 3 days of TV taping. That doesn't cut it. That's not a full time wrestling organization. It just isn't. I mean, it's still good to have, and I'd rather have this than nothing at all, but it's still part time. They don't do anything that an indie promo doesn't do. Exactly. This is the opportunity for the NWA to grow big time. This is why they need house shows to keep the wrestlers busy. They want to build a competitor in a company. Yeah, and that's the thing too. We've talked about that before. In 2023, they're supposed to ramp up. There's supposed to be more pay-per-views, which seemingly would mean more TV taping. However, I can't confirm or deny that's what really is the case. We'll just have to kind of wait and see. And if you're subscribing to the NWA Premier package, you're getting your pay-per-views for the same cost as same cost as a weekly subscription. And if you just pay it in advance, you actually save some money. So, media says 6 figures. That's ECW Sandman salary. Sheesh. Only 6 figures? I like much as 36, 24, 28. That sounds like some measurements there, my friend. I'll take the 38. Paladin says, I thought TV was the difference between the indie and a major company, but you're saying it's the amount of content they put out? Well, okay, so Paladin, this is a great discussion, and I don't really know how we can determine indie versus like a national company, right? But for example, right, United Wrestling Network has Primetime Live. That's their pay-per-view outlet. They also have television in a lot of local markets. I don't have it all in front of me, but at one point they were on in Los Angeles, not anymore. They have markets in Arizona, markets in Atlanta, and then markets all over the United States. Smaller, independent TV shows, but markets nonetheless. And even at one point, they were part of the CW's cable affiliate channel. I don't know what it was called. But basically, they were on TV in a lot of different places. But I would still consider Championship Wrestling from Pollo and United Wrestling Network indie. I wouldn't consider them a national company. Now they appear on television programs across the nation, but it's not the same. Like if you're on HBO versus on Channel 12, Bob's Channel 12, there's a big difference there. And then we talk about Impact being on Access, but not a lot of people have access to Access. And so we talk about a channel that they're on TV, but there's a large market of people that can't even see them. So is that comparable to being on YouTube for free and having your content available on Fight? Impact does a lot more than just 4 dates in a quarter. They do a lot of wrestling. United Wrestling Network, between the 2 or 3 promotions that are associated with them, they're doing wrestling almost every month, sometimes multiple times a month. So it's kind of hard to how you want to classify it. You look at AEW, they do several hours of studio television and then several hours of weekly television every month and pay-per-views. Of course, WWE has a much more vigorous touring schedule, more than any of the other wrestling promotions, where they're on the road like 300 days out of the year. It's all relative, I guess. And there isn't like an actual bar that anyone has officially said, like, hey, this is what separates the men from the boys. But as of right now, it's how do you tell? Medium 5 says, I knew plenty of very small promotions that were indie and had a small TV deal either on local TV and or national, and they were not as big as NWA is. That's another good point. Remember when ECW was running, I don't think ECW had the finances that the NWA have, but they were on a lot of more markets and they were running more frequently. Wiggly phone. Getting it done, sir. Tim reminds you to don't forget to like and subscribe. We do this show every Tuesday. We'll be here tomorrow, Wednesday for the Other Alliance guys. I believe Jeremy from the Other Alliance guys will be joining me on Thursday night as we discuss the results of Power and more NWA talk. BDM5 says OVW is a national company, yet it's considered an indie. Al still runs it. They're on 4 or 5 major TV networks. However, still not many in the USA can get them depending on their cable providers. So it's all kind of moot, right? We just have to kind of just there's a lot more determining factors. And Paladin, I'm glad that we gave something to think about. There's no wrong answer here, too, right? It's all kind of based on what we think. It's opinion based. None of us are actual source. None of us are actual media. But anyways, we're gonna wrap it up here. I do appreciate you guys being here every Tuesday. Such a freaking blast. So much fun. Again, make sure you check out tomorrow where you'll have the Other Alliance guys. That's Jeremy, Tim, and our boy Dave Scooby. We'll be talking all things NWA, specifically the USA episode, as well as we'll be talking about the United Wrestling Network and some other things. And then, of course, Thursday, Jeremy will be joining me live here at the Alliance Guys podcast, The Big Daddy. And we'll be doing more of the same, talking Power, talking upcoming pay-per-view, and just things that are happening in the NWA. So, again, appreciate you guys being here. It's always such a blast. Until next time, I'll see you at the matches. Thanks for checking out the pre-party, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. You should hit that subscribe button and join our community. I also want to remind you that we recap NWA Power every Thursday at 8 p.m. in the live stream. We try to stay social, so find us at the Alliance blog. And until next time, we are the Alliance.